There we go. Make sure everything is tight. Fixing the microphone. So, okay. I'm going to make sure that everybody can hear me. So, let's see. I'm going to have to put them on my reader glasses just to see everything better. Hello, hello, hello. It's not working. Like, why is the volume? Right. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, testing. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello. Can't hear me. All right. I think this works better. So let me introduce myself to all of you. My name is Brenda Sinclair, and I'm going to take these off while I'm talking. So, where do I begin? Most of the time when people tell a story about their life and whatnot, they always say, once upon a time, a long time ago, far away. But this is not a fairy tale. This is called life. And, okay. Yeah, I don't know if I should take off this part. Let's see if I take this part off. If it makes it any better, I don't know. But this is like the filter. Oops, one of the rubber bands popped off. Hold on. Which one? I don't fracking know. This one. And this one. Stop it. Okay. I think that's a little bit better. We'll see. So, where do I begin? This is hard because I don't know where to begin. More or less, I need this higher up because I feel like, there we go. More or less, I want to, how do I say it? I want to let y'all know that I want to emphasize to you all that this is all real, based on my life, true story. And hold on. There we go. Because the resolution sucks. Anyway, so um, I'm trying to emphasize the fact that this is hard for me to get out. It's hard for me to actually talk about these things. But in a way, as I was talking to my psychiatrist, she said it is kind of therapeutic to get it out there, to talk about it, blah, 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 blah. And I agreed. And so there's going to be several parts to this live. This is not going to be the only one um, that I'm going to do. And I need to touch up my roots, obviously. But that's neither here nor there. Okay. So where to start? Okay. I am 45 years old. And my story goes back from the day I was born. Let's just go back before that. Before I was born. My mother, she ended up having my sister Tina in 1972 with a guy named Victor. And then my dad, he ended up having a son with another woman. I think her name was Joanne or something. She was half Mexican, half, and then he was. So they had a son named Victor, and he was also born in 1972. Now keep in mind that my brother Victor was born in February 9th, February 9th, 1972, and my sister Tina was born in March 16th of 1972. Then in 1975 or 76, they met up with each other. And then my dad had just gotten out of the Navy, and he got kicked out. He had an honorable discharge supposedly, but we're not even going to go there right now. So anyway, to put it bluntly, my mom was dating my dad's first cousin. So my dad's first cousin I'll call him Rodney. Okay. I don't know how I'm going to be able to keep that name in my head. But I'll try. You know what? Screw it. It's Ralph. Okay. Anyway, so Ralph, and I'm going on first names anyway, so it's okay. Ralph was many cousins of first cousins of my dad, and my dad's mom and Ralph's mom are sisters. We're sisters, so that's what makes them first cousins. And anyway, my uncle Ralph was actually with my mom, dating my mom for a while, and then shortly after they kind of split up, and they just kind of decided to stay friends because my uncle ended up meeting my mother's sister, Linda. And so he started dating her, and then he introduced my dad to my mom. And they started dating. They hit it off, and everything was going good. And so they ended up getting married in 1977, I believe. Excuse me. Which was the year that my sister Angie was actually born. So no, actually, I think they got married in 1976 because they had Angie in 1977. Um, and then my sister Tina, from what my mom told me years ago, that my sister Tina was not planned. And my dad said that my brother Victor was not planned. And that my sister Angie was not planned. Out of all the children, I was the only one that was a planned pregnancy. Well, that goes without saying that I'm going to take these off since it's reflecting in the thing there. So, yeah. So that's how the story of my parents met, and then that's how the story of my siblings came along and how I came along. Now, my dad has told me a lot of different stories on the shit that he's done in his life. And a lot of it, should I say, seemed a little bit elaborated and made up, kind of fictional. And my mama, however, she's told me a lot, and most of the stuff she said, I believe her more than I would have believed my dad. But back then, I was a kid, so I kind of went, oh wow, ooh ah, and I'm like, my dad is the coolest, but yet all that changes when a person changes. So keep that in mind. Anyway, so the year was 1979, and I was born in February, so I'm an Aquarius. Hi. And what I thought was supposed to be, and my parents actually, my mother, thought was to be a blessing. I believe I was cursed from the moment I was born. And you're probably asking yourselves, why would you say that? Why would you say you're cursed? And here's my assumption. When I was born, I was told by several family members, including my mother, that before I actually was born, my mother went into labor with me, and it was in Texas. I am an original Texan. Okay, I was born in Dallas, Texas. So every once in a while, when I start, you'll hear my Southern accent come out. So just bear with me. I've been living in Iowa for about 11 years now, almost 12 years, and but I am originally from Texas, and I'm a Texas woman. So anyway, getting back to what I was saying. Now, also, I want you to keep in mind that my mother is a Southern woman, gypsy Southern woman. Her family originated from Tennessee, and then my daddy, he and his family originated from Ireland and Norway and Germany, and France, and a few others. I have a mixture of like stuff in me. Okay, so we'll get to that later. But on my mom's side is Egyptian, Gypsy, a bunch of stuff. So anyway, I ended up. Uh, my mom went to labor. Let's just say that my mom went to labor, and it was at. I'm trying to think. Trying to think. Uh, oh, I don't have to move. Okay, never mind. Hold on. Just takes time to remember. Yes, there we go. See, that helps having that available. Okay, so I have a hard time remembering what hospital I was born in, but now I remember. It was the same one that Kennedy was brought into after his assassination, and it was Parkland Memorial Hospital. So anyway, the story goes that my mom went into labor, but there were no rooms available at all. And basically, I don't know if I need this. Ugh. So basically, my mom went into labor with me, and there were no rooms available at all. And so they had to open up this like storage room or whatever you want to call it. And it had a bunch of like machines, and it had like a couple beds in it, and just like it was used as a storage room. That's all. And anyway, so I'm trying to make sure that you guys can hear me without it sounding distorted or too loud or whatever. So there you go. Anyway, so getting back to what I was saying, they opened up a storage room, and they ended up taking everything out except for the things that was needed, and then they added stuff to it, and then they left one of the beds in there, and they prepared it and got it made and ready. And my mom is in there, and she's laying down, in labor, blah 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 blah, and trying to fix my hair because it's that doesn't do. There we go. Sorry. There we go. It's over here. It's over here. It's over here. Okay. I'm done messing with my hair. Anyway, my mom, the nurse came in, and she was taking a stethoscope and putting it up above my mom's stomach, on the top part of her stomach. And my mom said, I can feel something coming out of me. I feel like something's coming out down below. And the nurse looks at my mother and says, no, Miss Martin. That was her last name, Martin. Miss Martin. No, Miss Martin. And my mom was getting fed up with this nurse. She was getting very pissed off, very irritated about everything. And so since the nurse didn't want to listen, and the doctor was nowhere at this point anyway, so the nurse wasn't listening, and my mom was getting pissed. So she decided to smack the nurse's face down to her crotch. to where the nurse ended up seeing that I was crowning. Okay, crowning. And she freaks out and she runs out of the room, and she's running to go get the doctor. And the doctor is in the fucking cafeteria eating lunch. Yeah. So, because the nurse ran out, it was just my dad and me and my mom in this room. And I am yet to be born. And my mom started pushing. She couldn't hold back. She had to push, And she ended up, motherfucker, I got caught. Hold on. There we go. I'm going to put this on. How's that? That's a lot better. A lot better, I think. And then the rubber band popped off again here and here. Trying to. There we go. Anyway. So, who else was there to take care of the situation? My daddy. And he had to deliver me. And then by the time I was out and delivered, my mom was like, and her eyes were rolled to the back of her head. And when I come out, I was completely purple and like bluish color. And he thought I was dead. And then the doctor come, running in the room, and the nurses and stuff. And my dad had laid me down, and he goes, "You killed my wife and child. My wife and child are dead." He's freaking out. And needless to say, my dad supposedly, my mom even said it happened, but supposedly he grabbed the doctor by the throat and then pushed him up against the wall and held him up there. And he was a short doctor, so not far from the ground, but enough, like that much. And he says, "You killed my wife and my baby." And he goes, Mr. Martin, I cannot help you if you don't put me down. I can't help your wife and your child if you don't put me down. And he finally did. And they went and cut the umbilical cord on me and then smacked me. And I started screaming and crying and breathing, and everything was fine. And then my mom, she wasn't dead. She was just tired and exhausted from pushing me out. So she was just passed out. And my mom told me later that she found out that the room that they took me in, supposedly, don't quote me, don't quote her, she's deceased anyway, so, but I was told that I was born in the room, if not on the bed anyway, of the bed that they brought Kennedy in after he was assassinated. Supposedly I was born in that room and on the bed that he was in. And that's why they put it as a storage room. They didn't want to open it up to the public ever again from that point on, I guess. So they put it as a storage room. But because of the fact that all the labor room, all the rooms were taken that night, everybody was like a full fucking moon, and everybody was in labor and having babies. And so, needless to say, yeah, I was born. I can't tell you exactly what time I was born unless I go get my birth certificates, and I'm not about to do that. But anyway, yeah. So maybe I had the Kennedy curse put on me, or maybe I don't know. I can't really tell you specifically of what I feel, but the day I was born, it was like everything was great, everything was good, And then I hit a certain age, and I remember when I hit that age, then things started getting really bad, and I had to witness watching my dad beat on my mom. And then he would use belts and spatulas and wooden spatulas and plastic and, oh, and don't forget the tree branches, to lash us with. he grew up on that kind of stuff. So he felt like that was a normal thing to do on how to punish your children. I couldn't disagree anymore. It didn't get bad. It didn't really get worse until I got older. And I tried to really think and try to, I don't know, how do I put it? I tried to think of all the good things that had happened to me. But because there was so much bad that happened to me, more than the good, it kind of outweighed and kind of like just, the good just went, kind of like a small little lockbox in the back of my mind. And every time I try to open it to remember the good things, all of a sudden those bad memories just come flooding in, and it's like, can't forgive, can't forget. But then I learned later to forgive, believe it or not. Anyway, my dad was an alcoholic, and he was always bragging about him learning how to fight and box and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, whatever you want to keep telling yourself, but okay. But then he just, something snapped in him one day, and I can't tell you when. I don't know when, actually. But it's, hold on. I remember when I was little, when I was little, I remember my mom and dad always having these live. Oh my God. I'm doing a live and I'm looking at it and I said it. Forget that. Strike that. Blah. Anyway, I remember my parents having a lot of parties and getting drunk and blah, 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 blah. And it was kind of like almost every weekend. And there's not a day that goes by where I can't forget about, it wasn't just the parties that I remembered. It was family. We always ended up eating together, and between the cooks in the family, it was my Uncle Ralph and my mama. Okay, those were the best cooks in the family. Okay, here we go. I don't know, it just feels higher. Anyway, no, it's even. It just looks like it. Okay. Anyway, so I remember growing up eating, because we were poor. So I remember growing up and eating a lot of goulash, chili, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, or just peanut butter sandwiches, or peanut butter and bologna sandwiches, or just bologna sandwiches. I mean, there was a lot of things I grew up with that were poor, like shit on a shingle. You think I'm joking or not? I remember we had to eat off of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for almost, God, it felt like, I think it was like 3 months. Because my mom and dad lost the place and we didn't have anywhere to go. And so they had asked, and of course my dad had to kiss my grandma's ass just for us to even camp out in the backyard, which, by the way, keep in mind that in the backyard outside, it was like 3 foot to 4 foot of snow out there. And my grandma didn't want us staying inside her house because she didn't like my dad. So we had to tent up outside in the snow with lots of blankets, sleeping bags, and pillows and everything. And we all had to huddle together to keep our body temperatures together to keep warm. And then I would remember, excuse me, I would remember on those mornings, and we didn't have to stay there very long, but I remember we stayed there for a little while, and it was miserable as fuck. Okay. And I might as well have just been living in a goddamn igloo. That's how cold it was. And living in Alaska or Canada or wherever. I don't know. So anyway, I remember that my grandma allowed us kids to go inside to like shower up real quick and then whatnot. But we weren't even allowed to come inside to like eat or anything like that. We were allowed to go in to use the bathroom, but only if it was number 2. If it was number 1, we were told to go outside or in a bucket. Yeah, my grandma was a total bitch. Let me tell you, through and through. So anyway, I remember my mom. There was like a fire pit out in the back. So my mom actually cleaned it out. And my uncle had brought a bunch of coal, like charcoal and stuff, from his job that he had. I believe that's what it was. Anyway, he brought us a bunch. And my mom took an oven rack from the oven. She put it on top of it. And she started a fire. And I remember she made breakfast for us. I mean, she made in the coffee thing. She made coffee out there on the thing. And if for any reason we needed something, it was only usually my mom that was allowed to go in because it was her mother. But the rest we all had to stay in, except for my sister Tina. My sister Tina turned out that she was my grandma's favorite. Out of all the grandkids, she was the favorite until my Aunt Linda ended up having her firstborn, which was Tony. And so Tina and Tony were the favorites. And the rest of the grandkids were like, no. Actually, let me rephrase that. Amanda and Dawn were accepted. They were more accepted, and we were born before, well, Amanda was born a year before me. Okay. So she was born in 78. And Dawn was born in 80 or 81. I think it was 81. But the point being is that Tony was born in 77, I believe, also. So yeah. But my point is that my grandma really hated me and Angie because we were Eldon's daughters, which is my dad's name. And she could not stand my dad for nothing. I mean, hated him to the core. So she figured, what better way to let him know that he's not welcome and that she don't like him by snubbing him and his kids. And now keep in mind, remember, at the beginning, I did say something about the fact that Tina was from my mom's previous marriage. And, yeah. So that's why Tina was a favorite. Because that was my mom's first kid. But anyway, I remember when I was 5 years old. This was probably the first traumatic thing that I can remember that happened to me. And I had an uncle, and that was my mom's oldest brother. And he was a big man. Like, we're talking 500 pounds. And I was only 5 years old. And my mom said that we couldn't do anything. We couldn't go outside and play unless we got our rooms cleaned. So we were like, okay, yeah. We got excited. And I remember that day like it was yesterday. And that's the weirdest part because we were living in Iowa at the time. And it was a little blue house. And I don't live that far from it right now. In fact, I live out a mile and a half, maybe, down from where I live. And I was 5 years old. It was a little blue house. And my mom was doing her beauty school stuff, La James. And she had some people. She was having like customers come to the house and she would do their hair and whatnot. And she'd get paid for it. And, well, let's just say that my mom, she was running her business in the house. And then my dad, he was working, doing whatever he was doing. I can't remember because he really didn't work jobs very long. He could never hold a job down very long, whatnot. And so my mom had to always work more jobs to make sure the bills got paid. So she'd work 2 to 3 jobs at a time. And because my dad was a pathetic piece of shit. That's the only way I can simplify it for everybody. And so yeah, I went into my bedroom, and I remember my uncle was sitting on the couch and his belly was showing, and I happened to go over there just before I went into my bedroom to clean it. And I went in there, and I actually cleaned it before that. I cleaned it, and then I said, Mommy, my room's clean. It's all clean. Can you come look? And she goes, give me a minute, baby girl. I'll be right there. She kept saying, Sweet, I'll be right there. Just a minute. Mommy's busy. So I was like, okay, yay. Because I wanted to go outside and play. And anyway, I seen my uncle sitting on the couch. And I remember there was another customer sitting on the couch there. And the TV was on. And this woman was like sitting there trying to be as far away from him as possible because she just found him very creepy, which he was. And she had every right to feel that way. Anyway, his belly button was showing. And ew, what is that? What is that? And I kept poking it, and I was like doing like this to it and poking it. And I thought it was weird. And something triggered him. Don't know what, but I'm thinking it was that. And I said, you want to come see my clean room? And his name was Lloyd. So it was Uncle Lloyd. And he goes, yes, I can, sweetheart. He goes, give me a minute, though. I got to go to the bathroom first. I said, okay. Went into my bedroom. Waited. About a minute later, here he comes walking into my bedroom. And he's like, oh, it looks so good. Good job. And then I noticed that, and I was standing in the middle of my room. Keep that in mind. And I noticed that his zipper was down and something was sticking out of his zipper. And I said, what's that? And he goes, oh, do you want to see it? And I was like, and I knew something was wrong because I could feel it in my gut. So when everybody says trust your gut instincts, believe it. Trust it. Okay. I said, no, it looks weird. No. And he goes, well, hold on. He goes, get on the bed and I'll show you. And I got on the bed very lightly, very slowly. And he goes, okay, now lay down. I got a surprise for you. You know. And then I remember he lifted my dress. And he was about to put it in me. He got turned on so much just from me playing with his belly button. And the thought of trying to rape me got him even more excited. And he was in the process of it. He had it partially there. And I was crying. And my dad and my mom heard it, and they come running in and they screamed at him and cussed at him. And then my dad picked him up, literally picked him up and threw him literally out of the house. Off from he didn't even touch the porch. He flew off of it. And I'm crying because I have no idea what just happened to me. I had no idea what just happened to me. All I know is I was scared and I was hurting. And my mom held me really tight and she goes, oh my God, babies, I'm so sorry, sweetie. I'm so sorry, sweetie. My dad threatened my uncle that day that if he ever comes back and shows his face again, that he'd kill him. Come to find out, I wasn't the only one that he done stuff to. He did stuff to my sister, Tina. He did stuff to his own brother, Michael, which was my mom's half-brother. Let's just say that my mom's mom was a slut, a major slut. She had more husbands than I can remember. She had a lot of miscarriages, but a lot of pregnancies. And she had a lot of kids. With pretty much each marriage she had kids with. And yeah. That was the first traumatizing thing I can remember. Oh, no. I'm so sorry. We got to backtrack. When I was 2 years old, I remember things like from when I was a year old, okay? I remember things from a year old. I don't know why, but I do. And I remember at 2 years old, I was sitting in my car seat in the back of a car, and it was a really big, long, kind of heavy metal type of old school kind of car. It looked like a big old boat. And back then, the car seats were not very secure. They weren't very safe, and they were easy to get out of, needless to say. And my mom and my dad's car was having issues, and it kept stalling. Well, it just so happened to stall in between, like the front half stalled in as they were turning into the parking lot to the place where they were going to fix the car. Okay. It stalled halfway there onto that and then halfway on the road. And it was blocking traffic. So my mom and dad put the car in neutral, and I was in my back of the, in the back seat in my car seat. And while they were trying to rock the car to get it to push, they were trying to get, over these potholes. And one of them was a smaller one, and another one was a big one. And I got out of my car seat, and I remember I climbed over, and I got to the front seat, and I looked in the back, and I saw my mom and dad pushing on the car and rocking it back and forth. And I was all, not completely oblivious to the fact of what's about to happen. But they rocked it so hard that I lost my balance and I fell out of the car because my mom left her side of the car door open. My dad shut his side. And I fell out, and I happened to fall into that big pothole And that day it was raining, and it was very muddy and a lot of water in that pothole. And I fell into it. And then they ended up pushing the car, and the tires completely ran over my entire body. And once they realized this, and my mom grabbed me, and my body was completely limp, and I wasn't breathing. And so they called the ambulance. But then I remember my mom said that it was like 5 minutes. I wasn't breathing. There was no signs of life to me at all. They thought I was dead, or I was going to be dead or die. And, but the ambulance people took over pretty quickly, and they got me breathing. And my dad used to joke when I got older that he said that because of that happening to me, that it caused a significant amount of brain damage and retardation. Seriously? I have a serious high IQ. No retardation or brain damage here. Not at all. But because of that situation, I remember that because I had to be in the hospital. And then it seemed like every time I turned around, I was in the hospital for something. Pneumonia, bronchitis. I had to be in the bubble like more than a few times. And you know what I'm talking about, the boy in the bubble thing? I had to be in that several times growing up. My parents, the doctors, nobody could come in, nothing, because they didn't want the air to be contaminated due to the fact that I was very seriously ill. And the doctors was always trying to figure out why I was so sick all the time, and why I was always coming to the hospital, with pneumonia or bronchitis. And I did have bruises on my body. And yeah, well, let's just say that more or less, my parents were smokers, and they did it constantly. Everybody, in fact, a lot of people in my family were smokers. So they did it all around the kids all the time. So we were always getting that secondhand smoke. And my mom and dad didn't even think for a second, okay, what kind of damage it had on us, or what kind of damage it was doing to us kids. So every time we got an ear infection, she'd take a cigarette, she'd light it up, and she'd blow the smoke right into our ears, which made the ear infections even worse. Especially heat, it makes the infection bacteria grow faster, making it worse. That's why. So if you ever saw that movie Evolution, and when they hit they blew up the bomb, and it made that thing grow even bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah, that's kind of what cigarette smoke or heat does to ear infections. So keep that in mind. But yeah, I was in and out of the hospital a lot due to lung problems, and I ended up getting asthma really bad as a kid, and suffered from chronic bronchitis as a child. But then 5 years old, that thing happened to me, and then it seemed like things were going good for a little bit. I was a tomboy, I was out having fun, and all I did was hang out with all the boys, and then of course, I get to hang out with my cousins too, which was a lot of cousins, okay? But we did some fucked up shit back then. What most kids do, experiment. Yeah, you know what I mean. And of course, me saying that, a lot of people be like, ew. And you're right, ew. But back then we were children, so we didn't know any better. We just did what felt good. And I believe everybody has experienced that once in their life. So don't judge me. Okay. But needless to say, yeah, we did that kind of stuff. But then at the same time, I also got on my bike and I was, jumping ramps and, doing all the stuff that the boys were doing. I did too, because I was one of the boys, and they they loved hanging out with me. We played baseball, football, you name it. We did it everything. But I never did anything, boom, 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 until I was about 7 years old. And even then, I don't think it was like the real thing kind of thing, um, because the person was so small. Anyway, I'm not naming names on that one because I would just say his name was Charlie. Yeah. And the other one was Jeff, you know. But so we didn't go like all the way. So therefore, I still have my virginity intact for the most part until I can't believe I'm going to say this. Okay, so it was probably when I was like 7 years old, 7.5 years old. It was before my 8th birthday, because I think on my 8th birthday is when we actually moved to Arizona. And I remember having a birthday party there, my 8th birthday party there. Um, but anyway, so at 7 years old, we were living in this town. So like I said, now this was not very far from me either. Um, about a mile and a half, like from that distance, and a mile and a half from this distance over there. Um, there was another house we lived in, and right across the street was like a plant of factory plant, whatever. And in the ground or whatever, it was the the grass or whatever. There was a huge hill, so that's what we would jump our ramps and everything off of. And right across the street was our house, and we were just having fun like boys do. And I decided to, and I'm a girl, so just keep that in mind. But anyway, my bike was taken. I didn't know who took it. So I had to use my sister's yellow banana seat bike. And it was a boy bike, actually, because it had that bar in the middle of it. And I remember I was picking up speed. And I had so much speed that as soon as I was going too fast on the bike, I went to jump the ramp. And when I did, I flew so high up in the air. And I got scared, like instantly. Ugh. Instantly, I regretted it. All of it. Because I jumped out. I got up in the air. The bike dropped below me, and then I fell on top of the bike. The most painful thing I've ever had happen to me happened. The banana seat bike went up my vagina. Tore it to shit. I had some damage done to my cervix, to the walls. Then I remember the other embarrassing part was the fact that my sisters, Tina and Angie, one had me on one side holding my arm, and my right arm, my right leg, and my other sister had my left arm on my left leg, and they had my legs, and my legs are spread apart, bleeding down there like really bad. And they had to rush me inside, and then my parents, were like, called the ambulance, and they took me to the hospital, and the doctor said that I had torn a lot and that I do not have a hymen. But then about, was it a month after that, I had to go back to the doctor to have a checkup, and they said, well, she still has part of her hymen there. So my mom said, is that a good thing? He's like, well, yeah, that's a good thing. She healed nicely. So obviously, you know, and then my mom said something to the doctor that I kind of took aback. I was like, what are they talking about? Because even in hymen, I didn't know what a hymen was. Not at that age. And my mom said, so she's still technically considered a virgin. And he goes, well, yeah, because she still got half of her hymen there. So she's still good. She's still pure. She wasn't defiled by some guy or, a person. So, and I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. Yes, I was 5 years old. Partially, but yeah, still. And then, oh, it was, I'll never forget that day. And that's the same house that I have a funny story to tell y'all. Okay. So it was winter and the driveway was up at an angle. So whenever we parked the car would want to slide back on the ice. It was parked, but the ice was too, so the car would just try to slide back. And my dad had to have somebody jump out of the car and get the bricks and that he had by the wall of the garage outside. And he would go there and he told my mom or somebody to have the bricks ready, so all they had to do was push him real quick. As soon as he pulled up, they'd push it on the behind the back tires so the car wouldn't roll back. And hold on. But yeah, so anyway, and my mom was in a white house coat. I remember that. And we just got a bunch of groceries, so we were going home and we were doing getting the groceries out. And my mom freaked out. Okay, so keep in mind, we had nothing but pain and laughter that day. Because my mom went. I'm sorry. I'm trying to tell the story. I'm trying not laugh because I'm still picturing it in my head. It's like a repeat of a reel, repeating and just in repeat mode. Okay, so she didn't have nothing on underneath the house coat. Keep that in mind. Also, keep in mind that my mother was a very heavy set woman. Oh, Lord. So, yeah. So, my dad had my Uncle Mike jump out of the car and my sister Tina jump out of the car and grab the bricks. And the car started sliding. So my dad's like, dude, put it in there now. So they're shoving it in the back behind the tires. And they're like, Herbin, put it in, get out. Don't get run over. And my mom goes, oh, she thought the car was going to go. So she went to take a step now we had cement steps. There was only like 3 or 4 steps maybe to this. And then the top part by the door. And my mom goes, oh, and the next thing you know, we were already out of the car, and I was reaching into the car to grab another bag, and my mom just she slipped and fell, and she even missed the steps. She went and landed on the snow. And she landed in her house coat completely open, way wide, all the way open up. Okay. And Mama, I'm so sorry. I love you. Rest in peace. But I have to tell the story. So she slipped and she fell and she landed on her stomach and it opened up her robe and literally it was like a water seal. You know? And she slid so fast and so far, she almost ended up practically out in the middle of the road and the street. And my dad goes, "Oh shit!" And he went to shut the door real quick to go take care of my mom. And next thing you know, it was like, uh, we were just laughing, but I wasn't. I should say I wasn't laughing because my dad had slammed my hand in the car door trying to go after my mom to help her. So I don't know if you guys see it. I'll try to show it to you. See if you guys can see it. There it is. So there's a there's a bar right here. Let me see it. I know where it's at. Yeah. So right here on the knuckle, there's a scar there. You guys can see that scar there. He slammed my hand into the car door, and it just gashed it open. And then right here is the other two. So I don't know if you guys can see it. There's two more right there. Oh, go down lower. Right in here. Two. So he got me in 3 spots. Boom, boom, boom. Tore the tissue on my hand really, really bad. And I'm bleeding profusely on my hand. So I dropped the groceries. And he got mad at me. My dad got mad at me because I dropped the groceries onto the ground because I wanted to grab my hand and squeeze it like this because it was bleeding. And he goes, "Those are vegetables. Don't grab the bags." And then when you run over and realized why, he saw my hand. He goes, "Oh, shit." And I'm screaming because I'm screaming bloody murder. And he's yelling at me for dropping the bags. And he's not asking why I'm screaming. He just comes over because he thought that he had scared me. Okay. So he comes over and all of a sudden he sees me holding my hand and I just got blood dripping everywhere. And he goes, "Oh, shit." So he moves my hand and I'm screaming, I'm crying. And he goes, "Oh, God dang it. Debbie, Debbie, Debbie." But we were all laughing because my mom had to stand up. And when she stood up, I did chuckle. Even though I was crying, I actually started chuckling. I started chuckling because I looked right at my mom and my mom's out in the public in front of everybody with her white robe completely wide open, showing everything. And she is covered in snow. And she's like, "What the fuck just happened to me?" And then my mom, all of a sudden, my mom starts trying to cover herself, shake all this stuff off of her. And then she, unties her robe thing. And then she closes it back up and ties it back up. And she's like, "Fuck, that's cool." And then all of a sudden, my dad screamed, "Debbie, Brenda's hurt." What? That's when my mom's mom kicked in. And she goes, "Come to mommy, baby, come to mommy." And I'm walking, and all of a sudden she sees just blood dripping and dripping and dripping. She goes, "Oh shit!" And now, keep in mind that my mom, was she studied to be a nurse's aide, and she got her nurse. She was a nurse for quite a while and a nurse's aide, and she was also a beautician. She's done a lot of different stuff, and so anyway, she saw my hand and she was like, "Oh shit." So she took me to the bathroom. She put my hand under cold water and she rinsed off and tried to clean out the wounds. Then she used this stuff to put on it to clean out the wound. And then she put a thing around it to wrap it. And she says, "You might need stitches." So she put a bandage around it and wrapped it and wrapped it and wrapped it tight enough to where it wouldn't cut off the circulation, but tight enough to, keep it from bleeding profusely, I guess. Oh, and they took me to the hospital and they stitched me up. And it was crazy because between the age of 5 years old and 7 years old, or sorry, 8 years old, I had to have stitches in my right foot. I remember I was young. I ended up stepping on, I remember that my sister had this guy obsessed over her. And he was basically saying, hey, you either go back out with me or I'm going to kill you. That's what he told her. So one day we were at a playground and there was a baseball game going on, and we were underneath one of those, I'm blanking on what it's called. It's like a little picnic area, but it's like a, why am I blanking on what it's called? Had a picnic table in there, and then it had like a cover to it, and it was open on the outside part, but it had a roof to it, and then around it had, a net connected to it was a bathroom. All right. And anyway, this guy came, and he was mad, and he started yelling at my sister, and everybody started taking off running. And I remember I used to have those jelly shoes, and I really loved those things. God, I miss those things. But I took them off to play because that's what tomboys do. And I ended up trying to run out, and this man, now you guys, you youngins, anybody 18 or younger than me, should I say, and this is an 18 or plus older live video anyway. So back then we used to have glass soda bottles for all the soda. So, and they were really big. They were actually pretty decent size. It's bigger than the screen, but they're that big. And he went and started throwing a bunch of those empty bottles all over the cement thing by the picnic area. And I was trying to jump to avoid stepping on any of the glass. And I guess as I was jumping on a spot that I thought was empty at that second, a piece of glass of a Mountain Dew glass bottle, shattered, and my foot stepped on it, and it cut my foot completely in half almost. The only thing it was hanging by was part of the bone and the tendon, and the bone was even cut, like fractured, So it was kind of, my foot was hanging, like, not, instead of being like this, it was like this, hanging. And my dad's friend, Chuck Herzinski, I remember his name. Yeah. He just won a T-shirt off of a radio station, and it was one of his favorite things. I can't remember what the T-shirt said or what the symbol on it and what it was, but I remember it was brand new, and he took it off of his body, and he pushed my foot and everything back together, and then wrapped his shirt around my foot, and then he tied it, and then not really tight, and then he picks me up. And I guess somebody had already called 911 because the ambulance was meeting us down the road. But I remember he had me in his arms, and he's running and running and running and running. And we got so far that we actually met up with the ambulance, and then they took me in the hospital. Had to spit. So anyway, yeah, they took me to the hospital, and they had to put stitches on the inside and outside of my foot, on the top and bottom. And when they stitched it up, I'll show you guys my foot. Oh, Lord. Because it's not going to be true until people see the proof. So, God, I'm not that. Oh, God. So, let's see. See, you guys can see the line going across. And then right here, so sensitive, right here above the stitch line, because it goes all the way around on both sides. But they ended up putting a bundle of nerves from that stitching because they had to put it all back together. They had to fuse it back together. And so now to this day, from then and then now, I wasn't able to get it wet or anything like that. Um, but I remember my sister had to help me take baths and whatnot, and then put like a plastic bag around it just in case to keep it from getting wet. And I so badly wanted to play football and sports with the rest of the boys and whatnot because I was mad that I couldn't get to go outside and do stuff. I wasn't supposed to be on foot or I'd tear stitches and stuff. But I thought they were in there they were in there for a while. So I figured, okay. And then I just I believe I just gotten my stitches taken out. They were just removed, but they said to still don't let me do any heavy activity or anything like that just yet, just to make sure that it fully heals on the inside as well as the out. Because I also got to remember it took broke part of the bone in my foot there, so everything was trying to heal properly. So I was still in like they took the cast off thing, and then they took the stitches out, and then they put another cast to replace it on my foot. And then I was on that for like 2-3 weeks with that on. They finally took that off. And then I was like, still take it easy, they said. So I was like, well, I saw the boys, my friends going out. They were outside playing in this. There was this park. It's called the Kissinger Park or something like that. I can't remember. But it was kitty corner from my house. So all I had to do was walk it and it was right there. Okay. It was like right there. And we ended up seeing that I noticed that all my friends were across from the park. They were at a house across from it, across the street from it. And they were playing football in this guy's yard. And I was like, you guys are going to get in so much trouble. And the guy's like, no, they're not, because it's my house. And I'm just like, oh, okay, cool. And I said, can I play? And my sisters are like, no, Brenda, you're not supposed to. No, you're not supposed to. Your foot. And I'm like, screw my foot. I want to play. So I did. And not realizing that guy was an alcoholic, that lived at this house. And here I am playing barefoot, of all things. And I remember I went to catch the ball and I ended up smacking my body into the tree. But when I did, the same foot that I just got stitches out and a cast off of, I ended up slitting open on the side and had to get 7 stitches, I believe, on the side of my foot because a piece of beer glass cut the side of my foot open. So, yeah, I had to go and get that done. And then I was off my foot for another 4 weeks. It was miserable. Lord. And then, of course, I used to hang out with this girl who turned out to be a murderer later on. Not joking. Give me a second. When you sit in a position to, after a while, it does hurt. Lord. I'm going to try to sit up and not fall off the chair. No, I'm kind of Indian style right now. Okay. Anyway. So, let me see. Yeah, hold on a second. Sorry, I knew you couldn't hear me. I better start over. I don't know if it's okay for me to do this, I said, because I'm on live, and but I am a smoker, and I'm trying not to show it on the video. Woo-hoo! But anyway, so if you see me doing this, it's because I'm leaning in or whatever. But anyway, my point being is that her name was, I think she ended up getting out of prison for a little while, and then she went back in because she did something about her. She violated her parole in some kind of way. So she's back in prison again, I think. But you can look her up. Her name is Ruth Ann Veal, and that's Ruth. I think it's ANN or ANNE. I'm not sure. And then veal is, and like veal, like you would eat. I wouldn't eat it, but because I don't eat baby cows. Not after what I heard happens to them and whatnot. But um, anyway, it's VEAL. And I remember she wasn't even a good person back then either, because my sister Angie and I would hang out with her, and we go and walk around the block and, our neighborhood and whatnot. And I had a Cabbage Patch, like cassette player, and my sister had just gotten a cassette tape of "Slippery When Wet" John Bon Jovi. Yeah. And so I was using my Cabbage Patch cassette player to play the tape, and we were walking around the town, listening to music. And that was our little boom box at the time. So, I mean, this was the 80s. So, yeah, everybody had a big giant boom box to their shoulder walking around, and we had this little Cabbage Patch. Anyway, so she offered to have us come over to have something to eat at her place. And we were like, oh, yeah, okay. And so we went over there, and I really regret going over there because her dad was abusive and alcoholic. She was half black and half white, I believe. And anyway, she had a very dirty home, and she went to go and boil some eggs. She was going to make us some eggs. So she was boiling the eggs, and she didn't know how to boil eggs because we opened them up, and the white wasn't even finished cooking on the inside, and the yolk was really runny. And anyway, we were like, no, thank you. We're not hungry anymore. And she goes, okay. She goes, well, what am I supposed to do with this? It's going to go to waste. I said, I don't know. Just feed it to a dog or something, or throw it outside and the birds will get it. I don't know. Anyway, she ended up stealing the Cabbage Patch cassette player of mine with my sister's tape in it. And we thought we could trust her, but we were wrong. And then on top of it, I had a boyfriend back then, and his name was Kurt Anderson. And all because I didn't want to have sex with him or sleep with him, basically. And she was willing to give it up. He he broke up with me to be with her so that he could get that. And well, anyway, I was too young, too young. And then next thing I know, he's dating her, and I'm like, okay, fine. But I couldn't even be friends with her anymore after that. Because I remember it was getting close to Easter, and we were invited to this thing where we had to go and find the Easter eggs, do Easter egg hunt. And then whoever could catch a baby pig would win a prize, kind of thing, one of those kinds of things for church. And my mom was big on going to church when we were younger. I mean, I don't know why, but she was a big um, church person, Christian woman, you know. I mean, this woman prayed every single night relentlessly, just without fail. And some nights she'd be too tired, so she'd do about maybe 5 to 15 minutes worth of a prayer and then go to bed. And then some nights she was doing this, she was talking for like 3.5 hours, you know, just praying. But so basically, yeah, my mom was big on her faith, and I respected that. You know, it was annoying after, you know, when you're younger, but as I got older and became an adult, I respected that and I appreciated it, and I understood why she did what she did. You know, I didn't appreciate the fact that she would take us to church all the time, and we'd be so bored we'd fall asleep, and then she'd get mad that we fell asleep and whatnot. And it's kind of like, oh, what do you expect us to do? We're at a church, and a lot of the churches are not the same. So because of that, it's kind of, you know, boring, especially some of the ministers and pastors and whatnot. So anyway, yeah, I ended up, hold on a second. I ended up, starting to hate church, but I think I have to say, I think that the best part about going to church was the Sunday dinners. So after we got home from church, my mom had already had a pot roast or a pork roast or something cooking for a Sunday dinner or Sunday lunch, as you want to call it, or Sunday brunch kind of thing, as she would call it. And she would have us, you know, uh, she'd have everything cooked and ready so that by the time we got home, she only had to do a couple more things and everything was ready to so we could eat. Sometimes we just sat down right away and we ate. Um, but yeah, she was a very good cook. I mean, amazing cook. And I love my mama so much. So much. And and then of course, like I said, on a lot of the time when I was younger, my aunt and uncle Ralph and Linda would come over with their kids, and then my aunt Joanna and her kids, and a few other people that were family or friends of the family, stuff like that. And we'd have big old dinners and have like they'd make a huge pot of goulash, and we'd be eating on that. And I cannot, to this day, I cannot eat goulash. Can't, because we had it so much growing up when I was a kid. No, thank you. No, I can't stand it. But anyway, yeah. So, and then I remember my mom and dad decided we were going to move to Arizona. Okay. And they talked my mom's half brother, Michael, and his wife, Bonnie, into moving there. And then shortly after we got there is when my aunt and uncle, Linda and Ralph, moved with them and their kids there as well. But that was shortly later on, because we had moved when we first got there. We lived in a place called Apache Junction, and it was a lot of Mexicans, a lot of poor people, a lot of illegal people. And it was not a good neighborhood at all, not safe at all. There were using needles and all sorts of stuff out there. It was bad. And anyway, um, we didn't stay there long. I remember that we didn't stay there very long. We were there for maybe a few months. And then my parents found a place out in I believe it was Mesa, and then we moved to there, and then didn't stay there long either, and then we moved from there to a town called Tempe, Arizona, and we stayed there for a little while. Actually, I managed to finally make some friends, and it's kind of, oops, it's kind of hard to make friends when you're constantly moving around and moving around and moving around and moving around. It's annoying. um, and then we ended up moving again, and we moved to Gilbert, Arizona, and then we moved from Gilbert. We stayed there for a little bit, and then we moved from Gilbert to another part of Mesa, Arizona, and we stayed there. And I remember because once we moved there, we stayed there for quite a while, and it was in like apartment complex area. Had a swimming pool, public swimming pool, all of that. Um, but there were a lot of gangs out there and gang rivalries and whatnot. Living in that area, and there was a lot of drugs and stuff around there. Very accessible to any age. Um, yeah. Um, so basically, I ended up, I remembered that my aunt and uncle and their kids, they were like right at the opening entrance of the apartment complex. Like as soon as you would enter from off outside the road and you go into the apartment complex, their apartment was, I believe, like the first one on the right. And if you went down the road a little bit, we were past the main office, but our apartment was like right across from the office and the pool. So we were not that far from them, and how they would walk just to come to our apartment. And I kind of liked it there, but keep in mind that I did start smoking at the age of 7 years old. The first time I had a cigarette, my sister Tina and her friends were in the garage. And now just keep in mind, I am going to be jumping back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, because this is how it makes sense in my head and how it makes sense for me to get it out to explain everything. Okay. So it's kind of like going back and forth from one memory to another. And one memory will remind me of another memory and then go back to that memory. So it's kind of how I am. Trauma survivors would understand what I'm doing, what I'm talking about, because it's kind of hard to stay on just one memory and talk about that constant. You go from one to another to another to another, back to that, same one. It's one of those situations. But anyway, I ended up seeing them in the garage, and they were listening to music and smoking cigarettes and smoking marijuana and all that. And I said, you better not do that. Mom and dad will be home anytime soon. And if they catch you, you're going to get in so much trouble. And Tina said, I won't tell or she goes, no, she says, don't tell them and I'll let you do something. And I'm like, what? And then that's when she handed me a cigarette. And keep in mind, she wasn't even inhaling it. She wasn't inhaling. She was just like, and then she would do where the cigarette smoke would go through her nose and then she'd blow it back out. So that's how she did it. And she always had yellow nicotine stains on her nostrils. It was just gross. Anyway, her friend ended up showing me. She goes, do this. And I watched her, and she's like, and I was like, okay. So I took it and I put it to my mouth, and I just started choking and coughing and coughing and coughing and coughing. But the buzz that it gave me was kind of good. I liked it. It was very tingly, made me lightheaded, that kind of thing. And so anyway, yeah, I ended up doing that. And after that, I was like, I better go in and brush my teeth or whatever, because you know, mom and dad are going to be home, and I don't want them smelling this on me. And so I ran into the bathroom, and I ended up uh, brushing my teeth as quickly as I could, washing my hands, and I used toothpaste to rinse my mouth that way, and then some mouthwash to wash my mouth that way. And then I sprayed my body with a bunch of my mom's perfume so that she wouldn't know what I did. And then that next day was a Monday, so we had to go back to school. And we'd have to walk out of our house from that house I got hurt down below. We had to walk out of the house, go down the driveway, or go across from our house into the grass, and we had to go down the street, down by this tree, and stand there and wait for the bus to come pick us up. But what I didn't know is that where I stood, my mom and my dad could see me from the window. And that morning, I had happened to sneak 2 cigarettes, 1 cigarette from my mom's pack and 1 cigarette from my dad's pack. And I didn't think they would notice. And then I went to the bus stop, and I had matches, and I went up and I started smoking it. And I did little teeny puffs, not big puffs, little teeny puffs. And I need to take my medicine. Give me a second. Oh. What I didn't know was that my mom and my dad had woken up shortly after I got to the bus stop to make sure I got there and I was okay. They happened to see me smoking on a cigarette. And then I smoked it all the way until it was like that far down from the butt. And I threw it in the snow. And then I ended up lighting the other one up, and I was just like lightheaded. I was like, woo! I felt good, but I felt really dizzy, and I thought I better be careful because I feel like I'm going to get sick. But I lit up the other one, and then I decided to put it out because the bus came, and I didn't want the bus driver seeing me smoking, so I put it out, and I ended up yeah, I ended up putting it out, and then I had like a half of one left, I think. And I saved it, and it stunk like a skunk kind of smell. And as I got on the bus, the driver says, did you get sprayed by a skunk or something? I said, no. And he goes, why do you stink like that? I said, I don't know. I said, I stink? And he goes, yeah. And then I said, oh, I'm sorry. And then I went to sit down, and I found a seat to sit down in, and my sister didn't go to school that day. I can't remember what happened, but she didn't go to school that day. And so it was just me on the bus. And some friends of mine on the bus were like, you stink. You really stink bad. I said, well, my mom and dad smoked cigarettes around me. And they were like, ew, And that was the first thing that popped in my head. So that's why I said. And then, which wasn't a lie, it was the truth, but they weren't up at that time to smoke around me because I'd already gotten to the bus stop before they could. And so yeah, I ended up I got a strained muscle in my shoulder. So anyway, I got back home from school that day, and my parents, I guess, like I said, saw me smoking. So they had a full pack of Marlboro Reds shorts, I believe, and they had a cigar. And that, I think it was 2 cigars, but they had me puff on the cigar and smoke on the cigar. But first, I think they had me do the cigarettes. I'm trying to remember how they did it in order. They sat me on the couch and they said, since you want to try to be cool and try to smoke like mom and daddy, here you go. And so they made, it was a cigarette first. Yep. They made me smoke on the cigarettes, and then they were trying to get me to smoke the whole pack. And then they lit up a cigar and they made me take puffs off the cigar, and I was just getting sick and sicker. And I got so dizzy and lightheaded, and I couldn't stand. And I thought, oh God, I'm going to die. This is how it feels. I'm going to die, because that's how it felt. And I ended up getting sick. And then they made me chew on the other cigar and eat it. Yeah. And from that point on, I was throwing up. Like, it felt like constant. And what made it worse was not only did they punish me with the cigarettes and cigars, but and the fact that I was, hold on, I'm trying to get comfortable. And the fact that I was throwing up so much, that my mom made it worse by making me do chores around the house. I had to clean their bedroom. I had to clean my sister Tina's bedroom, mine and my sister Angie's bedroom. I had to clean the bathroom. I had to wash all the dishes, including the ones that were in the cupboards already. I had to organize the Tupperware, stuff like that. I had to sweep and mop, vacuum, clean the toilet and the tub. I had to do all of that stuff and do the laundry. And I kept saying, please let me lay down. Please let me lay down. You know, I was begging them, crying. They're like, no, not until you're finished done with your chores. Knowing that I just had to run, I had to stop doing what I was doing to run just to go to the bathroom to throw up, and then go back out and start back up and do this stuff again. And all I wanted to do was lay down, because everything was just spinning. And I ended up doing everything. And then finally my mom said, okay, now you can go lay down. And I went and laid down, and I was still throwing up. So she put like a basket next to me so I can get sick. And then she goes, maybe this will teach you, you know, not to. Oh, God. She said, this will teach you not to smoke again, or to take any of our cigarettes ever again. She goes, you ever going to smoke again? And I said, no. And she goes, good. I don't ever want to see another cigarette in your hand or your mouth again. And I slept and slept and slept. By the time I woke up, it was time for me to get up for go to school. So my mom made a nice breakfast for everybody, including me. And all I remember is I didn't want to go to school that day. And I was completely pale white from head to toe. Like there was like not amount of any kind of blood flow going through my body. And I ate something and it helped me, but I still just felt so ugh. So my mom said, no, you're going to school. And I begged her. I begged and pleaded with her to please let me stay home from school. And she finally gave in. And I did. And she says, okay, go back to bed. But if you're going to stay home from school, you don't get to watch cartoons. You don't get to do. So I'm still getting punished. Keep in mind, I'm still getting punished. Because if that day of yesterday wasn't bad enough. Then on top of it, now that I'm staying home from school because of what they caused to happen to me, I mean, I'm being more punished by saying, okay, well, you can stay home, but you have to stay in your bed. You can't come out of your room unless you have to go to the bathroom or get something to drink. And I was like, yes, ma'am. So I was so angry because I couldn't even watch cartoons, nothing. Just lay on the couch and just lay there and watch cartoons. No, I had to stay in my room. And then once my sisters got home from school, then I could go out and watch some TV. But even then, there was really nothing I wanted to watch because all the good cartoons are on in the mornings, And I learned, that was the moment I learned that there was more cartoons that I was missing when I was in school. But it wouldn't matter because my parents, once the kids were off to school, they would change it to what they wanted to watch anyway. So, but I learned that there was so many other cartoons, wonderful cartoons to watch when you're not, and the thing is that my parents, I remember they said, hey, we got to go run somewhere. We'll be back. Stay in your room. Do not come out. We'll know if you did. And I'm like, how would they know if I come out of my room? I said, well, if I come out of a room, I have to go to the bathroom and get something to drink. And they're like, that's the only time. Well, I learned from my sister Tina, and I learned how to be devious in a way, sneaky. So I went out and I started watching cartoons after they took off that morning. I went into the bedroom like they told me to, and then they left. And I went about maybe 15 minutes after they left. I went out to the living room and I turned the cartoons on. And I just sat there and watched them and watched them and watched them. And it was about maybe 2 hours later, my parents were coming in the driveway. And I shut the TV off. And I ran back into my bedroom. And I lay down in bed. And the next thing I know, I hear my mom coming in. And my dad opens up the bedroom door and he goes, you're grounded for 2 weeks. No TV. What? What did I do? He goes, we told you to stay in your room and you were not in your room. Yeah, I was, I said, And he was like, nope. And he goes, you were watching TV. I said, no. And he goes, lie to me again. Because he smacked me across my face really hard. And he says, lie to me again. And I said, yeah, but how did you know? And he goes, carries me out there. And then he goes like this, and he put his hand on top of the television. He goes, TV's hot. It's warm. Means you just shut it off. So it's been on. He goes, if it wasn't being watched, it would be nice and cool to the touch. No warmth. I was like, shit. But I didn't say that out loud. I just thinking in my head. And he goes, go to your room. So I did. And I just couldn't believe that my parents pulled that one on me. That they knew how to check the TV. I knew that it was being used. And I was like, ugh. They got one over me on that time. But yeah. I remember we did something bad, me and my sister. And because of it, my dad made us bend over on the couch and he took a belt out. And he beat us so bad that he wasn't even paying attention about just beating us on the butt. He was beating us on the legs, beating us on the back. He got my right arm and my right shoulder blade on the back side of it. He got our stomachs. Because we were moving and screaming because it hurt so bad. And then I remember he would just grab us by our arms and shoulders and he'd just start whipping us wherever he could hit us. he would lose himself with his temper being so bad. He would lose himself while he was punishing. So it's like he just until my mom would scream, and then it would like bring him back to reality. But then he'd be even more furious because she interrupted that, you know, because like I couldn't tell if he was getting pleasure out of beating us the way he did, and but that if he was going to stop, he was going to stop on his time, not anybody else's time, you know, like my mom screaming. And yeah, so basically from there, I remember watching my dad. He slammed my mom up against the wall, and he just started punching her and strangling her, and we were screaming. And then finally my dad stopped, and he grabbed his stuff and walked out and got in the car and took off. He did that a lot when things weren't going his way. And yeah, he was a very selfish man, a huge narcissist, very manipulating, controlling, and he had to always be right. And this man would talk for so long. And the only reason why I'm talking so long is because I'm telling my story. There's a difference. This man would like repeat his stories, same stories that he's already said before, several times before, and he repeat them and emphasize and then add to it. So I always noticed that he would give us his speeches about stuff, like if we did something wrong, and then right afterwards he would add extra details every time. It was always something new, something different. And then this man would loved to literally talk to you for so long. He could sit there and talk to you for like 4 hours. The longest he actually talked to me was, and I'm not saying talking, I mean lecturing. He lectured me for 5 hours, 5.5 hours, I believe. And I kept falling asleep because it was my bedtime and I had to go to school the next day. And I was a teenager at this time. And he was lecturing me, and I can't remember on exactly what it was, but he just lectured. And he was like a broken fucking record, repeating the same shit over and over. And I said, why do you keep repeating yourself? I got it the first time you said it. And he goes, well, I wouldn't have to repeat myself if you weren't so fucking retarded. That was his answer. He goes, I have to repeat myself because you're too stupid. You're fucking retarded. Name calling. That's a type of abuse. Degrading oneself. That's a type of abuse. But I said, no, I got it. And then every time I dozed off or fell asleep because I needed to sleep, and he would smack me in the face or in the back of the head to wake me up. And then finally, my mom said, just let her go to bed. Let her go to bed. And I'm sure something, sunk in. And he goes, well, fucking better because I'm tired of having these conversations with you. And I said, I don't think so. I said, I think you enjoy talking forever. And he smacked me across my face. And I just shrugged it off and went into my room. But the point being is that my dad was a very, very abusive man. And it's like he got off on causing us pain. But then he was, as some people would call, a clown. He tried to be a comedian, tried to be funny. And you were expected to laugh at his jokes. Because if he thought it was funny, then we had to find it funny. That kind of thing. True narcissist. Anyway, my my dad would do comedical things like, and sometimes I don't know if he did it on purpose or if he was that stupid, but instead of turning off the fan and everything on the ceiling fans, okay, before turning them, he never turned them off. He would leave them going just to change the light bulb, or to go up there and turn that little switch so that it would be blowing downward or blowing lifting up, depending on what they wanted. Um, so yeah, he would get up there to do all that, and then all of a sudden the fan would go pop, 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 and he whacked him in the head several times. And he'd go, "Son of a bitch, motherfucker," whatever. He would cuss and yell, and we'd all just start laughing. And we thought it was funny. In fact, watching him go through pain was more funny for us, because he puts us in, he was always putting us in so much pain that for once we got to laugh at his pain kind of thing. But and then he would finally laugh, like, "Hey, I made them laugh, even though I'm a dumbass. I can't let them see that, so I'm gonna laugh with them." You know. He also liked to goof around and do stupid, goofy dances and try to act like Michael Jackson and Elvis Presley and whatnot. It was a, hey, mama, you know. I don't really like talking too much about my dad, but the problem is that a lot of my childhood trauma was due to him. So whether I want to or whether I'd like to or not, having to talk about him, and him is kind of the highlight of this story of my life because of what he did to us, what he put me through and everybody else through. But getting back to my younger years, a lot happened. I'm going to say this, a lot happened when I was younger. Um, Actually, I knew two murderers because I had to really think about it. We were friends with this one girl. Her name was Amber, but to this day, I still can't remember what her last name is. I just remembered that she lived about a block or a block and a half away from where we lived. So her house was like walking distance from ours. All we had to do was walk down the street, and then we were back at our house. Okay. And anyway, back then, we had a creek down from our house down the road. And one day she says, "Hey, let's catch some crawdads." And that creek was always full of crawdads. So I said, "Let's catch some crawdads." Or she said, "Let's catch some crawdads." And she goes, "I want to play a prank on my mom." So my sister and I were like, "Okay, cool, cool, cool." So we had these really big, giant white buckets. They were really big. Or, where's the camera? The bottom part was about that big around. And really, really tall, long and wide. Like, I'm going to move the camera, but let's see. So the buckets were about a foot long or so. And so anyway, yeah, we took these buckets, and they even had the plastic handles on them. So that was going to be carried that way. And we took them down to the creek, and we climbed down there, and we were finding a bunch of crawdads, and we put some water in there, and we were putting the crawdads in there, and then we added a bunch more crawdads into it, and everybody kept saying, we need to put more water in there. And she's like, "No, don't put a whole lot of water, just fill them up with crawdads." So she goes, "In fact, try to dump out as much water as you can." I'm like, "They're not going to survive if we don't." She goes, "They'll be okay for a little while." And I'm like, "Okay." So we got them filled, and then we walked all the way back to her house with these crawdads in these buckets filled. And then she says, "Okay, so when I say," she goes, "I want you to take the buckets and start dumping them around me on the floor and then dump the other two right as close as you can to the front door, and then shut the door behind you and go. And I'm like, okay. And then my sister's like, what are you doing? She goes, I'm going to prank my mom. I'm going to scare her to death when she comes through the door. And she goes, but you might not want to be here to see it because she's probably going to get mad. And we were like, oh, okay. Yeah, sure. And I mean, we were kind of laughing. We were thinking, this is going to be a funny prank, but she's going to get an earful, probably get grounded or something. And shortly after we walked out the door, we were walking away and we saw a car pull up, and it was her little white vehicle. And she parked the car and she's here. So we kind of stopped. We didn't want to walk too far, but we walked far enough to where, she couldn't see us. And we just stood there kind of trying to watch and see if we could hear anything, see if she screams or whatnot. And, oh yeah, she screamed all right. But what we didn't know was that Amber had a gun, a shotgun, next to her in a thing, a case carrier. And it was fully loaded. I think it was a shotgun or it was a rifle. I can't remember. It was a big gun. And she had it next to her, and then we didn't see it. We didn't notice it at all. And we were pouring all these crawdads all over the floor, and they were all crawling around, So I'm like, you're going to let them crawl on you? She goes, I'm not afraid of them. You're not afraid of them either. You picked them up, But either way. So like I said, we're just kind of standing from afar, but we were listening to see if she screamed. And she went, a real loud scream, And then next thing you know, we hear the and we're like, what was that? I don't know. Sounded like a gunshot or a firecracker. And we took off running from that point. We took off running, went home. And we said, Mom, Dad, we think something bad just happened. And they're like, what? And I said, I think something bad happened at my friend's house. So they called 911, and neighbors called 911 because they all heard it. And she just sat in that chair when the ambulance and the police and everything just arrived at the house. She shot her mom. As soon as her mom screamed and walked to the door, seeing all the crawdads on the floor, her mom screamed, and she didn't even give a chance. I don't think she even gave her mom a chance to say anything. Because as soon as her mom took the first scream, that was it. And then boom. And then Amber waited for them to show up. And she admitted what she did. And she sat there and waited for them to take her. And I was like, first, we didn't know what happened. Nobody knew what happened. And then the next thing you know, we hear we walked down and we could hear, and we saw her being handcuffed and arrested and being taken out into the police car. And we're like, what happened? Amber, what happened? She didn't say anything. And then that's when we saw them carrying out the body of the mother. And we freaked out. And we just, went back home. And that's when we realized that she killed her mom. And I said, I can't believe she did that. Just can't believe it. And then she's my mom, of course. She said, I'm going to pray for her. She goes, but something must have been going on that was pretty bad, that she felt like there was no other way out. And she goes, that doesn't excuse what she did at all. But some people are just crazy like that. So I remember that. And I remember we used to catch crawdads specifically, mostly just for fishing bait, because we did a lot of fishing growing up. So for all you men and women out there, Hi. um, I'm a outdoorsy kind of girl. Once was anyway. Now not so much because maybe I just haven't met the right person, or I just haven't. I just haven't met the right person. But at the same time, my health and my disabilities also keep me from, well, doing a lot also. So there's that. But, yeah, it was crazy. And then, of course, Ruth Ann Veal, I was talking about her earlier. She didn't actually commit her murder, the murder she committed. She committed that when she was a teenager. And she ended up, hold on, dang it. She ended up doing that when she got older. She moved to Waterloo, Iowa, and we were living in, I think around this time, we were living in Arizona at the time, I think. Oh, damn it. Hold on. Anyway, we were living in Arizona and found out from some friends and family there that she goes, you know that Ruth Ann Veal that you got your daughter staying out with? Yeah. She murdered some old woman. And we're like, what? Found out, yeah, she stabbed a 80 something year old woman like 11 or 12 times. Supposedly she was high, and this woman was giving her a place to stay or to hide out or something. I don't know, but she was being nice, and she offered Ruth Ann something to eat and drink. And Ruth Ann, the story, she told a different story. She was telling everybody that this old woman was so nice to her, but she wasn't used to it, and it freaked her out. And that's why she did what she did. But after she did what she did, she also stole a lot of stuff. And she got caught later on, but she stole some money. She stole some jewelry. Um, yeah. And of course, she killed an older lady. So, but she got put in prison for that. And then she kept getting denied bail, or not bail. What's it called? Oh Lord, see, I'm blanking right now. When the parole board, uh, something just poked me. Hold on. It just poked me. Something poked me. Anyway, so when you go up for, possible parole, and you go through a hearing, and they decide whether or not you get to go on parole. Nope, they denied her and denied her, denied her. She kept taking it over and over and over to try to get her case returned to somebody else and whatnot. And finally, they just stopped. And she spent a quite amount of time in prison. She finally got out. I don't know how, but she got out. And then she did an interview and told her that she was strictly only allowed to be at certain places, and that she was not supposed to discuss or talk about what had happened, and she did, to this guy who's like known as a talk show person. I don't know who he is actually. And he was asking all these questions in the interview, and she was answering them to her way she remembers it all, kind of thing. But either way, it was a big no-no, and she got put back in jail or prison. But now they're saying it was for something else. It's listed down for something else. I can't remember. but she violated her parole is basically what happened, and that's why she went back in. But yeah, so and then of course I knew some other murderers. I just had my baby, so no, was I still pregnant? I believe I was still pregnant. It was it 1997? 1997, I think it was, because I didn't have my daughter until January 18th, 1998. See, this thing is not wanting to sit still, and it's not wanting to stay in place like I want it to, like that. Stay. So anyway, yeah, um, there was this. We lived in Mason City by this time. We were back in Mason City because we moved from Arizona to Tennessee, and then we went from Tennessee to Minnesota, and then back from Minnesota back to Iowa. Um, but anyway, we moved to this place in Iowa. We lived in several places. We even been through tornadoes and everything. It was crazy. Um, but we moved to this certain spot, place in Mason. I think it was Mason City. I'm not sure. Um, yes, it was. And before we moved to the hotel that my parents were going to manage, and I was supposed to manage with them, which I did. Um, we were living in Thornton, Iowa, and I was pregnant with my daughter, and we were working at a Denny's, and I ended up almost killing this bitch because she elbowed me in my stomach when I was 6 months pregnant with my daughter, all because she was jealous and mad that her son was looking bad because he wasn't doing his jobs, and so my boss was making me do his jobs plus my jobs. And I was seating some customers down on the smoking section, and next thing I know, she confronts me about it. And then as I'm trying to walk away to avoid confrontation, she elbowed me right in my stomach. And the guy saw it. The guys saw her do this. And so I ended up going into the office and telling my boss about it. And I said, hey, she just elbowed me in my stomach. And I'm clocking out because I'm in pain. And I might need to go to the hospital to get checked out and make sure I'm okay and that my baby's okay. And he was like, okay, yeah, if that's what you need to do, that's fine. He goes, why did she do that? And I said, because she got mad because you keep making me do her son's jobs because he's not getting out there in time and getting it done. And I'm trying to do that plus do my job and or my jobs. And my mom was a cook in Denny's and I was a waitress. So anyway, point is that that happened shortly after. I ended up, I told him I was uh, done for the night, and then he finally ended up that next day. I came into work because we worked the midnight shift. We were doing the graveyard shift, and I needed to sit down because I was having problems again. And I said, "Can I sit down for a little bit?" And he goes, "You know what?" He says, "Why don't you go ahead and clock out?" And he goes, "Don't bother clocking back in." I said, "Excuse me?" And because I said I could have quit yesterday, after what happened, and you didn't do nothing about it. And he goes, you can't keep taking time whenever you feel like it off just because you're pregnant. I said the law states that if a pregnant woman is having discomfort or any kind of issues, that they're supposed to be on light duty work, not this heavy duty work. And at the same time, that they are allotted more breaks than most normal people. And he goes, well, I don't care what it says. He goes, if you're not going to work, then you don't need to be here. And I ended up telling my mom that everything he said. And I said, honestly, Mom, I said, I think he's just doing this because out of all the waitresses, I'm the only one that hasn't slept with him. Oh, fun. And that I refuse with him because, first of all, I was pregnant. there's that. And secondly, I didn't want to mix any kind of that kind of shit at my job. I was just not wanting to do that. And so, all because I didn't give it up like all the rest of the girls did. And he wanted me badly. He wanted me badly. He was trying every angle as possible to try to get me to sleep with him. And I just kept telling him, no, 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 no. And how he did it right in front of my mother. We were all outside having a cigarette break, and he was out there with us having his cigarette break. Next thing you know, he's flirting on me, trying to touch on my boobs because they were so big due to my pregnancy. And my mom said, hey, 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 watch what you're doing. That's my daughter. And he goes, yeah, but she's a grown woman. She can make her own choices, and she can tell me what she wants. I said, you don't touch me. Ever. He got mad. And then shortly after that, that's when all the shit went down. And then, of course, we moved from Thornton, Iowa, and moved to Mason City, Iowa, to a place it was called the Hawkeye Motel at the time. And it was right across from Van Horn's Auto Place. And then on the other across the street, on the other side of our left side, because here's the motel, okay? And across the street in the motel was Van Horn's. Then here's the motel, and to the left, across the street, was a strip club called the Outer Edge. And we had a lot of girls staying at the motel. And up top, there was nine rooms. And then a lot of people, we didn't even know about it at the time. We didn't know about it. But down below, we go down in the basement, and there was these, like, it looked like college dorm rooms. It was all cement down there, whatnot. And there was a lot of beds in there. And supposedly when the college kids did come, we had to set it up to where the guys stayed down below and the girls stayed up top, And there was even a microwave and TV room and everything down there. It was awesome, And they had a refrigerator. They had everything they needed. But the worst part is that knowing when this happened, we had to go down there. We had to dust everything, clean everything from head to toe. And I'm fucking really pregnant, by this time. And basically I was just like, I think my arm is touching this thing, and that's why it's moving around so much. There we go. Oops. So anyway, yeah, we had to go and clean everything. Clean. And it was driving me nuts because it was so much to cover, so much to do. And here I am pregnant, and I'm tired and exhausted. I don't want to have to clean. But I did. And see, this thing is not trying to. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Anyway, I had to clean. And it was driving me nuts because of the fact that I'm trying to get all this done, and we had very little time to get it done. And that was another issue, another problem. Excuse me. But so yeah, and then we had to clean the motel rooms up above too, so get everything ready. And a lot of the college guys came, and they were staring at me, and they were like, "Ooh, she's hot. Ooh, she's hot." And every one of them hit on me and was trying to get me to have sex with them. I was like, "Do you guys not see that I'm pregnant?" I mean, my God, every one of them was trying to sleep with me, and then they're like, and I'm like really pregnant, And anyway, so there was this room. I can't remember which room it was exactly, but I'm thinking it was room 7. Was the room that these this couple came in, and they had a little baby boy with them, and he was so handsome, and they were African Americans. And I'm so pregnant, and so my hormones are like raging through. And we got to babysit this little boy. He was so beautiful. He was so awesome and amazing. He was such a good baby. And while she would go and dance, and then her husband would go with her, to make sure she was okay. But they were kind of getting pissed off with him because, yeah, we didn't know until later, of course, but he was basically saying who she could and couldn't work with. And I'm like, work with what? And then the bartender explained to me when I went to go get some cigarettes over there, because they did sell cigarettes to us, and told me that now she goes, I don't know if that's her husband, but I know for sure that's her pimp. And I'm like, pimp? What the hell? And I said, she prostitute? And she's like, yeah, I think so. She goes, because then they leave after it's time for to leave, and then they leave with somebody, or they say they're going to meet up somewhere. Well, one particular night, just so happened that they were staying in the room and we were babysitting their baby, and they didn't get home until really, really, really late in the morning, and they came to get the baby, and we thought they were checking out. That's what it looked like. It sounded like, they were going to check out. But they were in such a hurry that they had to hurry up and take off and leave. And I was like, well, they didn't take anything with it, I don't think. So my mom made me go check. And I went to the room and I unlocked the door because I had the main keys for the rooms. And I opened up the door and everything's just shrouded all over the place, just everywhere. It was a mess. And I went to the bathroom. Their bathroom stuff was still in there. I even moved the shower curtain open to see if their shampoo and conditioner and all that stuff was there. It was all there. Then something caught my eye. There was a bunch of blood splatters all over the shower curtain and the walls and on the tub. And I'm like, somebody get hurt. So I found it a little odd. And then I went in. I left and shut the door and locked it. And I went back to the office. Now, keep in mind, I'm very, very pregnant, almost like 9 months pregnant. And I'm waddling at this point because I only had one baby, but I was retaining a lot of water due to me drinking a lot of baking soda water for the heartburn. And I accumulated more liquid in my body than I should have. So I looked like I was about 14 months pregnant then instead of 9 months pregnant. But anyway, I'm waddling back in, and then I'm not joking, there was 2 men in black standing in the office. And they immediately just started jumping down my throat. And I'm like, excuse me? My hormones I snapped at them. And hold on a second. There we go. Otherwise, that's going to keep moving and moving and moving. There we go. I'm going to have to unplug the microphone for just a second. I'll be right back.